What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here doing a technical analysis on ticker symbol PL for Planet Labs. On the left-hand side, we have the daily time frame, and on the right-hand side, the 30-minute intraday time frame. First things first, we haven't talked about this one yet on the channel, and you can see it's a fairly new, to the market at least, company here. So let's start by just pointing out where the opening print was, where the high was, as well as the low here in this. What you'll notice is that obviously over the last 3 days, we've moved significantly lower, and in the post-market, we're actually much lower than that, if you can believe it. So they did post some pretty poor results. I believe it was Q3, Q2. Let's see over here. So Q3, okay, so or 3Q they put it there. Basically, their revenue, or they posted a loss essentially for quarter 3. So with that out of the way, it's very clear here that we will be opening on a gap down. And I'm sure the question on a lot of people's minds is, hey, can I come in here and scoop this thing up for dirt cheap and then flip it for a quick buck? And here's how it's going to essentially unfold. Okay, we want to know where the overnight low is. This is essentially what I just marked out, right? Overnight low, anticipated opening print, and the low of today's session. With that sort of being marked out, and please remember, a lot can happen between now and 9:30, so adjust those levels accordingly. But this is essentially what you want to watch for, okay? So making this easier to see, here we go. Scenario number 1, whenever we're dealing with a gap up or down, is the gap and trap. And what that looks like is if we do open down here and we move a little bit lower but fail to attract new sellers underneath the overnight low, which is currently at 738, then look for longs. This is your entry essentially, up and over that opening print to close the gap, or at least start to close the gap. I'm not saying it's going to fill all in one day, especially something that it seems like no one had any interest in anyways, but there could be opportunity for a quick scalp. Maybe it only makes it to $8, maybe it makes it to $8.50. There's no saying where it's going to top out. Could fill the gap all the way, could make it all the way up to 10, right? Who knows? But that's ultimately the framework that you want to use here. So again, a failure to take out the overnight low or attract new sellers, long back up through the open. And again, that's what the chart should do. I'm not telling you to go out there and buy shares if that ultimately does happen. See what I did there? So next up would be the gap and go. So this is where you're going to essentially say, I'm going to stay away from this stock because I can see what's unfolding here is not what I want to see, right? It looks like it's going to go lower. So if we open here and put in some bear flag consolidation off the open, never really bouncing hard off of that low, it could be the overnight low, it could be, somewhere in the midpoint here, then stay away, right? Be patient here and wait for one of these setups to ultimately unfold. If you cross back through the open, fine, that's your long setup, right? But for now, if we don't do either of those things and we're consolidating in here, then a breakdown of the overnight low essentially sets off much lower here inside of the stock, noting that there's no structure off to our left to really reference, okay? So step aside, really don't want to be sort of trying to catch the falling knife. What you'll notice, there are no shares to short, and the put volume over here, it's not the greatest. I mean, even if you wanted to go with the highest volume strike, the 750s here, it's 10 by 15. And again, do you really want to be taking a 33% haircut if you're marketing in and out of your position? And it doesn't really make sense to me. So stay away from the short side here in this one, ultimately just looking for longs if it wants to fulfill that sort of framework which we discussed. Just one more reminder, a failure to take out the low, back up through the open is the long to look for higher, okay? So that's ultimately how you'll know if you can buy this dip. If it doesn't happen and we just do something like this or consolidate, do choppy action back in here, step aside, don't get involved, move on to the next setup. That's going to wrap up the video. If you enjoyed it or learned anything new today, let me know in the comment section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our main channel is linked in the description. And all of that being said, I wish you a green trading week.